On the Ecclesiastical Mystagogy. On the symbolism that has been established for the rites that are performed by the Holy Church at the Divine Synaxis. To Lord Theocharistos, Maximus the humble monk. The divine proverb says a wise man becomes wiser when he receives an opportunity, and a righteous man, when he knows, will continue to receive knowledge. And by your experience, most honorable of all to me, you clearly showed this to be true, teaching by action what the divine word wisely intimates. You once listened to me relating a cursory and summary fashion, such as it was, the contemplations of another esteemed elder, who is truly wise in divine things concerning both the Holy Church and the divine synaxis that is performed in her. Since the contemplations were beautiful and mystical, and above all valuable for teaching, you pleaded with me to draft for you a written exposition of these rites from the synaxis. You wished to have this book as a remedy against forgetfulness and an aid to memory, saying that time naturally overpowers the memory and can imperceptibly, through forgetfulness, strip away and even completely obliterate the impressions and images of the beautiful things that are stored in the memory. For this reason, memory doubtless stands in need of a way of renewal, by which the power of the written word continually abounds and by nature preserves the memory unchanged and undiminished. Everyone who is endowed with a little of the nobility of reason, and is not completely estranged from intimacy with the word, surely knows how much wiser it is to seek the indestructible permanence of that which is heard than simply to hear. But at first, the reason I was reluctant, for I will speak the truth, I declined your proposal, beloved readers, was not because I did not wish to give you my thoughts in any way to the best of my ability, but because I have not partaken of the grace that leads those who are worthy into such an undertaking. Neither do I have experience in the art and practice of speaking, since I was educated rudely, and am completely uninitiated in the craft of words, which possess merit in the delivery alone, in which the masses greatly delight, limiting their pleasure to the sound of the words, even if the words often contain nothing of the value of deep insight. But it would be nobler and truer to say that I was anxious lest, by the economy of our discourse, I should insult the majestic expression and intelligence of that blessed man concerning divine things. Nevertheless, at last yielding to the compulsion of love, which is stronger than all, I accepted your demand willingly, for I would rather be laughed at by the critics for audacity and lack of education, while being obedient, than let it be supposed that by my postponement that I do not wish to share in your eagerness for every good thing. As it says, cast your anxieties on God, the only one who works wonders and teaches man knowledge, who makes intelligible the tongue of stammerers, who finds a way for those who are lost, who raises the poor one from the ground and lifts the needy one from the trash heap. I am speaking of the fleshly thoughts and malodorous slime of the passions, and the poor one is the poor in spirit, or the one who is impoverished concerning evil and destitute of the habit according to it, or contrariwise. The poor one is the one who is still entangled in the law of the flesh and in the passions, and for this reason impoverished and destitute of the grace according to virtue and knowledge. But since the symbols according to the sacred rite of Holy Synaxis have been contemplated by the all-holy and truly God-revealing Dionysius the Areopagite, in a fashion worthy of his expansive mind in his treatise on the ecclesiastical hierarchy, one should know that the present discourse does not cover the same things, nor does it advance through the same things as his, for it would be audacity and arrogance and near insanity for those who are not able to attain or to comprehend him, to attempt to emulate him, and to present as their own the mysteries that were revealed by the inspiration through the Spirit to that one alone. But the present discourse covers as many things as are attainable. To others, and as in the benevolent will of God, he omitted for the displaying and training of their habit concerning divine things according to their desire. Note: here one can clearly see Pseudo-Dionysius' influence on Maximus. Pseudo-Dionysius had written, "Now it may be that some explanation is due for the fact that even though Hierotheus, our famous teacher, has put together his splendid elements of theology, I too have composed other theological works together with this present one, as though what he wrote were not quite sufficient. If he had set out to deal with all theological questions, and indeed had provided an account of every area of theology, I would not have been so mad or foolish as to believe that in dealing with those same theological topics I could have displayed a more divine insight than he, and certainly I would not have wasted time in a repetition of these same things on the divine names. When perceived through the divine things, the radiant splendor of the rites performed is made manifest to them in due measure, and it binds to itself those who are encompassed by longing, in order that those who come after the blessed elder should not be altogether idle. All the day of the time. Sorry, let me restart that sentence. Or rather, the sentence starts on the previous page. Okay. When perceived through the divine things, the radiant splendor of the rites performed is made manifest to them in due measure, and it binds to itself those who are encompassed by longing, in order that those who come after the blessed elder should not be altogether idle all the day of the time of the present life, because they do not have a paid contract to work in the divine vineyard. This contract for spiritual work in the spiritual vineyard restores the spiritual denarius of the divine and most royal image that was stolen by the evil one in the beginning through deceit, according to the transgression of the commandment. Now I am not promising to recount all that which is contemplated mystically by the blessed elder, nor the same things that he said, as he perceived and said them. For in order to become a lover of wisdom and a teacher of every discipline, he set himself free from the fetters of matter and its delusions by a superabundance of virtue, and by the study of the divine things for a long time, and in an expert fashion, and by hard work. And consequently his mind was illumined by the divine light, and so he was able to see by inspiration things that are invisible to the masses. And his discourse, like a mirror, undiminished by any stain of the passions, is a most accurate interpreter of that which he perceived, receiving in an untainted fashion the things that others were not able to perceive. And the discourse succeeds in conveying and saying things so that his hearers are able to see the whole through thought communicated in the discourse, and that all things that he perceived are reflected purely in the whole thought and ferried across through the mediation of the discourse. But whatever I hold in my memory, and am able to perceive dimly, and to speak even more dimly, nevertheless with reverence, yet I will speak by the grace of God, who illuminates the things that have been darkened. I do not suppose that you, who know how to discern rightly, think it necessary for me to be able to perceive or speak otherwise than as I am able to perceive and speak, and as the grace from above grants. This grace provides an ability that is properly accorded to me, even if the one who imparts and teaches you is ultimately the Most High. Since it seems to me that to seek equal things from the things that are unequal in virtue and knowledge would not be far from those who attempt to prove that the moon shines equally to the sun, or those who force things that do not correspond to one another in any way to correspond in every way, although this is preposterous. Let God be the guide of the things that are perceived and spoken, for he is the only mind of those who perceive, and of that which is perceived, and he is the only word of those who speak, and of that which is spoken. He is the life of the living, and of the things that have been endowed with life, on account of the very things that are and are becoming. He is the one who is, and the one who becomes all things to all. But on account of himself, he neither in any way whatsoever belongs to, nor comes to belong to the things that are becoming, whose essence he constitutes. He is by nature in the same class as absolutely nothing of the things that are, and for this reason he allows us to say rather that he is not, because it is more properly said of him that he transcends being. For it is necessary, if we are to know truly the difference between God and creatures, we must know that the negation of things that are is the affirmation of the one who transcends being. And the affirmation of the things that are is the negation of the one who transcends being, and both designations can be reverently contemplated about him. Yet neither is possible in a proper sense. I am speaking of the existence and non-existence of God. Both are possible in a proper sense. On the one hand, it can be affirmed that God is because he is the cause of the things that are, and on the other hand, it can be completely negated that God is because of his superiority as cause of the things that are. And again, neither is possible in a proper sense, because neither establishes the very essence and nature of what existence is concerning the one whom we seek. For nothing at all, whether it exists or it does not exist, is united with him by nature, because he is their cause. Neither anything of the things that are and are spoken, nor any of the things that are not and are not spoken in any way comes near to him, for he has an existence that is simple and unknowable and inaccessible to everyone, and that is completely indescribable and beyond every cataphatic and apophatic statement. This suffices for now. Let us proceed to the subject set before us in the discourse.